Okay, YouTubers and space detectives, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now today we're going to be looking at Jezero Crater again, but we're not looking at the little things and objects on the ground. What we're going to be doing is looking at the background and looking at some of the features we can see in the distance, okay? Potential structures, city areas and things like that perhaps, okay? Now, what I've got here, I've got one of the main pans here. This is Jezero Crater LZ 360 view, okay? This is mast R. So that's the right mast cam on the Percy rover Sol 4. Now there have been some new images from the Percy rover, but nothing we haven't already seen. I was kind of waiting and hoping we'd get a load more really nice images, but we haven't really yet. We're only getting images of the same stuff over and over again because the rover hasn't actually moved at all, as far as I know yet. So it's just photographing. It's probably running through all the checks and everything, all the system checks, which is perfectly normal. The same happened with the other rovers when they landed. It didn't actually move for quite some time. It was a week or two before they actually started moving. So I'm hoping soon, anyway, this weekend or next week, we will start seeing some movement from the rover, and perhaps even some drone pictures as well from the copter drone, okay? That would be nice. But it is scheduled to do that, but we don't know when exactly, okay? So what I'm going to show you, there's basically a couple of Gigapan satellite images I've got up here. This is one of Jezero Crater. Jezero Crater northwest. This shows the landing zone, the LZ, right? There's the LZ, right there. And then we have this thing over to the west. This is orientated north, so that's almost perfectly due west of here, is the top edge of that structure, which I showed, okay? Now this, I think, is artificial because you can see rectangular parts to it here, okay? It may look natural, it may look eroded and all broken down and dilapidated, but I think this was actually a much more significant structure at one point in the very distant past. And as we get closer to it, hopefully we'll get some nice images of it and we'll see that a lot of the block work on this is not natural. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm predicting, okay? And what I'm going to show you, there's also this one here. This one shows further to the west. It's also Jezero Crater West, but we're looking from that structure, right? And we can see further right over to the western edge of the crater here, and also the northern edge of the crater up here, right? And all the strange structures in the ground. There's lots of these weird holes in the ground. Some of them are rectangular, and some of them are square. Okay, these are all over the crater and don't look entirely natural. And a lot of people have been speculating on the cracks in the ground. Now you can see the cracks here, there's one here. Now, of course, this is a lake bed, and the area, when the water evaporated, basically the sedimentary layers in the bottom of the lake would have hardened and then baked hard like clay, okay? Literally turned to stone, really. And over time, they've cracked. But some of them do look artificial. And I've even been following some of the NASA people on Twitter and other places. I've been spying on them a little bit. And they've been speculating about these, what look a bit like tracks on the ground, okay? These here. Now, if that was just a crack in the ground, why would it have a raised edge either side? That's the point. But they're all over this crater, and you can see them going right up to the northern areas and round to the east as well. You can see them on the ground. They're all over the place. I'll come back to that at a later date. These were initially pointed out by John Ward, I think, months ago, and also Chris at Mars Anomalies channel also has been showing them as well. And they're not just in this area, they're all over Mars, these cracks. And I do think most of them are probably natural, but some of them kind of look a bit like roads or something. Very strange. You can see them here. And those are not the best examples. There are better ones further up to the north of the crater. And while I'm here, I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping here. Those of you who've been watching my channel will have seen this image about a week or two ago. And I showed this thing, okay? Now this is Gale Crater. So a different rover. This is a Curiosity rover image. And this is one of the very few in-focus photographs that is taken in many, many years. It's been there nearly 10 years, and it's only taken a handful of very in-focus photographs. Nearly all the photographs we've had have been out of focus, or not specifically out of focus, but in landscape mode. Now, in landscape mode, what happens is, as I've said 100 times before, everything looks a bit blurred because it's not in sharp focus. This is in focus, right? And we have a huge statue here. Now, I showed this in a video the other day, like I said, but it turns out that someone else spotted it also, but a couple of days earlier. And I've got a link here. It was spotted by Jim West, and he actually posted it on the 24th, 2 days before I managed to get it up onto YouTube. So we were both looking at this at the same time, but he got to publish it first, so that's cool. So I'm going to give credit to Jim for that. He's a good researcher and has been posting some cool stuff for many years. I didn't actually see this post because it's on a group that I don't really go on. But when I posted my video, there was a comment made saying that he'd spotted it. So I checked it out and it all adds up. So that's cool. And he's done a very nice clip of it here. You can see the giant head here. This is between about 6 and 10 feet, possibly much bigger in height, just the head part. And you can even see here, you can see the arm coming down like I showed with fingers on the end here, just a hand. Okay, so if you want to check that out, do go back and watch my video. I've got it up here. I'll just play you a little clip of that because it shows the close-ups. I'm just going to play that little sequence at the end there. There we are. And you can see the arm coming down here. There's the hand with the fingers. All right. There's the whole thing. And then it zooms in now and you'll get a close-up. But basically, it's nice to know that other researchers are independently finding the same things as me, which kind of proves that this is not pareidolia. And it's weird because with this find, some people got really upset about it. One or two people were commenting on it and saying there was too much detail. The reason there's too much detail is because, as I said, this is one of the only images we've ever had from the Jezero Rover that's actually in sharp focus. Whereas most of the others were in soft focus, okay? And not only that, we have a dark background which kind of highlights it very well, so it stands out and it looks nice and clear and sharp. And the camera's actually focused on this area exactly, okay? And I've got a gigapan of it up here, and you can actually see this is the in-focus cam shot of it, which is lovely and sharp. And you can see a hell of a lot of detail in here. Lots of granular detail, right? Which we don't normally see unless it's something right close up to the rover, okay? And then this is a normal, slightly soft focus image here, taken by the mass cam. And when you zoom into this, there's nowhere near as much detail. You can see the same things. There he is there, it's there, but there's almost no sharp detail. And I have sharpened this, okay, a bit, and it's just very soft focus, okay? That's because it's taken at a distance of about a mile or somewhere between a kilometre and a mile away, and it's not focused on this, it's focused on everything, which means everything is in the same sort of semi-soft focus, okay? So that's an example of how cameras work depending on which mode they're in, okay, or which type of shot you're taking, okay? But yeah, so credit to Jim for that. Well done, Jim. He's been doing this kind of stuff for many years. And had I seen that earlier, I would have put it in that video and mentioned it before. But there we are, okay? This often happens with us researchers. There's people from all over the world doing this. And there's about 20 or 30 Mars groups now. There were initially only about 5 or 6. But lots of new ones have cropped up. And it's impossible to keep up with everything that everyone's doing. I do try and keep an eye on what everyone's doing and make sure that people get credit for things, so that's cool. So well done, Jim. Well spotted. Nice to know that someone else has spotted the same thing. And there it is. I mean, this is what I call the Geiger Coil. The video is called New Mars Perseverance Gigapan and the Geiger Coil of Gale. Bit of a mouthful. The Geiger Coil, basically because it very much looks like the sort of artwork that H.R. Geiger used to do years ago. And there we are. So that was that. So let's crack on with it. Now, basically, I'm going to be really quick here. I'm not going to go through all these things because I've shown a lot of these things in Jezero Crater on the ground before in my last couple of videos, 2 or 3 videos. So I'm not going to show all these little things on the ground because a lot of them have been covered. But what I'm going to show you are some strange things in the background. And let's start over this side. Now, this side here, now what I've done, there's 4 pans here. Now, these are all a 360 view of the crater from the ground, from the LZ of the Perseverance Rover. And what I've done, I've marked them. The top one here, this area here, is west. So we've got west here, right? That's looking west. This is looking north. And then we've got east, and the bottom one is south, okay? So you can actually orientate this large structure here, which we've got here, which I've shown before. This is the one with the water erosion on the side. You can see the erosion here and some strange shapes in it as well, which may turn out to be something interesting when we get closer. But basically we can orientate this with this here. Now this is satellite image from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. I've marked here the LZ. This is the LZ. That's where the rover is, just there, right? So it's not perfectly due west, but it's just off due west. Going across here to the left, we have this, right? Now you can also orientate that with this image, which is going a bit further west. So there's that thing again, with the weird domes below it there, right? So we're looking west, and we can see the edge of the crater up here, and this is the delta area, which is the bit where they want to measure all the deposits and stuff like that, okay? So you can see a lot of stuff here, and there's loads of weird things in the ground. There's cracks and weird holes in the ground, a lot of them which look kind of square, rectangular, like these here. These are all over the place, okay? So what I'm going to show you, basically, is some of the things in the background. Now, we're looking west here, and as we move this side, we're kind of looking southwest. This is southwest up here, right? And this part here is north. The second one down is roughly north. This orientates with this area up here, okay? So we're looking at these ridges up here. So we're not looking perfectly due north, we're looking just off north. So it's north-northwest we're looking here, and northwest along here, right? And there's that big structure. So that's where we're looking. And there's loads of weird stuff up here, which looks to me either like structures up here. There's a row of them here. They're very small. You can see rows of these. They look a bit like letters or numbers. Now, it may turn out that these are massive inscriptions, but I doubt it, because they're way too big. But we have seen them in Jezero Crater, so I wouldn't rule it out. But there's loads of these little kind of structures here. They're not very clear. I have got a clip of that. Now, there's some weird stuff going on here. Now, I thought these were initially, this part here looked like a load of letters on the side here, okay? But actually, I'm beginning to wonder at all if that's correct. And we're not really close enough, but what you can see up here are rectangular parts, lots of rectangular parts. So this may turn out to be a buried city. We've got loads of these weird structures here, got these here, and they're not very clear. Unfortunately, I've had to really darken this to see them, and you can't see them very well, but there is another area. Now, I spotted this when I made the Gigapan, but I wasn't sure about it, but there is another area over here, just a bit further over to the right of there, where there's a rectangular structure that you can actually see, which is a bit larger and a bit clearer, okay? So you need the magnifier, hover zoom. This is marked, it just says, there's a marker there. And you can actually see a rectangle right there, just there. That doesn't look natural, okay? So there was one there. What I will do is I'll put these clips in at the end of the video in a minute. I'm just going to quickly show you 1 or 2 others. Now there's another area over here as well where there seems to be something up here, but it's quite small and it's a long way off. This is miles away, so we're not going to see it in very good detail. But we can actually see what looks like a dome or structure there on the side of this mountain, just there. I will take a clip of that and highlight it for you, right? And then there was something up here. Now, I spotted this the other day as well, but it turns out, as it happens, this looks like a city area, right? Now, this image has already been enhanced very slightly. It's been color corrected, but really not much. It's been brightened up a bit of contrast added and color corrected, right? But only a little bit. Now, to see this properly, you need to take a clip of this and then add lots of contrast, okay? And it turns out that this area is in a video done by Neville Thompson. Here it is. Now, this was put up by Neville Thompson yesterday, in fact, but I think he made this video a couple of days ago, and he spotted this, and he's done some nice enhancements of this. So what I'll do, I will link to his video in the description below, because he's done some really nice clips of this, and he lines it all up with the stuff in the background, from the aerial views, from the satellite images and everything else. Very professional job, okay? So I'll link to that below. But basically, I've got a clip of this, and I did notice when I was putting the Gigapan together, I spotted all these long lines here. Now, if you zoom in and use the magnifier, there's all these long lines going up here. Now, you can't see them very well. These are probably clearer just here. Now, a lot of these are just sand dunes, okay? These straight lines. There's loads of parallel lines going along here, right? Just here. They're not very clear, so what you need to do is take a clip, like I've done, here, and darken the bejesus out of it and add some contrast, okay? And that's what I've done. And you can see up here we have rectangular or square structures, large square structures. There's one here, there's another one here, which kind of goes back and joins up with this one, and there's another one here, and there's multiple ones up here. They're like block houses almost, right? You can see some smaller ones in here, and a whole bunch of stuff going on here. There's another one here, there's another one here on a mound. Now, we see similar things to this in Jezero Crater on Mount Sharp, okay? And on Mount Sharp, there is an ancient city which I called the Forbidden City. I've done many videos on it, so if you want to go back and check them out, they're all there to look at. And what you have on that mountain, on some of the lower slopes, are buildings and terraces. Loads and loads of terraces coming down where they were growing crops, probably growing crops of some sort on the mountain, many thousands of years ago when it was still wet and the things could still grow, okay? And that, I think, is what we might be seeing here in this area that Neville Thompson spotted. I did spot it independently, but he beat me to that as well. I was too busy looking at the objects on the ground. I always like to look at the things on the ground and find carvings and objects and things like that, because I think that can tell us a lot about their psychology, as well as their level of civilization and how far advanced they were. Whereas seeing structures like this, this could be an ancient city of a culture that was quite primitive, perhaps like a village or town even, or the edge of one. But it doesn't tell us a lot because we can't see enough detail. When you look at things on the ground, you can see close detail, and you can really tell what their psyche was and how advanced they were at making things and producing things, and what level of technology they had, whether they were using electronics and that kind of thing. So, but it's all equally valid, and all these things are equally valid, and they all add up together to make good evidence. But this was cool. This probably would look a bit better if I darkened it a bit more for you, actually. Let's get rid of that, and I'll quickly shove that in there and darken it up a bit more and see if we can really drag out those shapes, because it's a difficult one because it's a long way off, it's miles away, and it's hard to see these things, but you can see that square object here. Let me get you got a square here, we got a square here, and that kind of joins back to there, right? And we got multiple objects up here, block houses or whatever they are. Now, a lot of these may be natural, but there's one here on like a mound. There's like a rectangular one there on a mound sticking up, just like some that have been seen on the edge of Mount Sharp. And then we have all these terraces, right? Hundreds and hundreds of lines all going parallel. Now, a lot of this is probably just dunes that have been blown up against the side of the mountain, and the winds kind of push them all the same way. But I think some of them are terraces, because it looks very similar to what we've seen and what I've shown on Mount Sharp in Jezero Crater, okay? So we have structures, terraces, and what looks like an ancient city or town area. Very similar in size and detail to some that I've shown to the west of Jezero Crater, not very far from where we are today, only a matter of miles to the west, okay? Very similar, but we're seeing it from the ground instead of from above. So that was really cool. So well done to Neville T on that one. I thought that was really interesting, really good. It's not that clear, but it's pretty obvious when you're seeing big rectangular shapes like this that there's something going on there. There's no way those are completely natural, okay? Absolutely no way. So that's a great find. So really cool that was. All you have to remember is this top corner on the right of the top one is due west, okay? Because that's just shy of due west, so that's west right there. So you can actually orientate yourself between the on the ground shots and then line yourself up looking west and north, west and north here, okay? Now obviously if you look completely due north, there's not really a lot to see, it's so far away, but you will see the edges of these things up here. And incidentally, just here, there does seem to be some structures we can see from space here, right? Just here. There's a square one there, a rectangular one above it, another part here, but it's obscured with dunes. So that may or may not be. But what you can see in this one, Jezero Crater Northwest, if you look to the north here, you can see all these cracks in the ground that look like roads or canals. Now these may be irrigation channels, okay? But they also just may be normal cracks. You can see some really good ones up here. These are the ones that Jean Ward pointed out months ago in one of his videos, which is really cool. And you got this long straight one here, and then others coming across, right? You can see them here. So there's some weird stuff going on in Jezero Crater. It looks like we have buildings along the side of this mountainous area up here. We have that strange structure, which may turn out to be natural, but I think could be a structure. We've got these weird domes here. This one looks very artificial. It's got what looks like an entrance to it here. I've shown that before, months and months ago. Just here. And it's got a weird thing on top of it, which looks like a structure, which doesn't look entirely natural. We should get closer images of this stuff and be able to confirm a lot of it. And like I said, you've got the LZ here, and there's all these weird holes in the ground, okay? And they're not craters. Some of them are, but some of them look very rectangular. You've got a rectangular one right there, right? Just here. See that rectangle? So, like other parts of Mars, and like the areas to the west of Jezero Crater, where I've shown towns and city areas and canals, and even things like giant roots and plants coming out of the ground, there seems to be a lot of artificiality in this area, and I think that's why they chose it, not just because of the interesting sort of mineral deposits in a lake bed. They could have chosen any lake bed on Mars. There are hundreds of them. But they chose this one, and it just happens to be surrounded by what look like buildings and structures, ruins and stuff like that on the ground, up on the mountain, and some of them in plain sight. And you can see them from here. You can actually see some of these things. So there's the city area, right? Most of it's on the top one. That's the area that Neville T spotted. I'll put a credit on there for him as well, just there, right? And then there's the what looks like a building here, which I spotted here, which looks like a dome or structure there. Not very clear, but you can look at it with the magnifier. And then on the lower one here, we've got all these weird sort of structures up here, which look a bit like buildings or something going on here. Not really sure. We should get some better shots of that in the next few days, hopefully, at least in the next week or so. And there was that rectangular structure, which you can clearly see without doing anything to it, just there. Right there is a building or structure right on the side of this mound here. We should get closer shots of some of this stuff coming up in the next week or two, hopefully, and perhaps even some drone shots from the air, which would be great. Because the drone shots, they will do, if it goes high enough, they will reveal that we're surrounded by what are possible ruins here, okay, in this area, right on the landing zone, right where they landed. Now, they were actually scheduled to land up here on this flat area, but at the last minute, the rover decided, or the descent stage decided to divert because they were getting very close to this crater here, which is full of sand, and if they'd have ended up in there, that would have been the end of it, right? And if you watch the descent footage, you can see these two craters, and it kind of came in this way and started coming back towards this, and then they suddenly changed course and then dropped it south of these two craters here. But it was actually at 1 minute heading right for this one. I thought, oh my God, they're going to head right into the crater. Because I watched it live. Quite exciting, actually. And then they ended up at the last minute, literally last 30, 40 seconds, diverted it here, and then it sort of shot down here, just south of these these smaller craters, okay? So we're on the edge of this ridge here, which comes round, and we got all these weird sort of holes in the ground, some of which look square and some look rectangular. So there we are. And we should hopefully have some more close-ups of the background. They might zoom right in. They've got powerful zoom lenses on the cameras on this thing, so they can zoom right into this stuff, right? So let's hope we get some close-ups of what look like rectangular structures and town areas at the edge of Jezero Crater. Okay, so thanks for watching, everybody. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Please share on social media. I will see you soon.